Hello, I'm Dr. Neena Nair, Balia College, Mumbai. Welcome viewers to the 7th academic session of our action-oriented Global Tipping Point Summit. We're delighted to see participants from various parts of India and from other countries as well. The topic today is highly relevant to us all, and so we request you to please participate actively by typing your questions in the chat box. This summit has been conceptualized by the dynamic education futurist, TEDx speaker, internationally acclaimed educator and storyteller, Dr. Kumi S. Vivina. In October 2016, Dr. Vivina retired as professor and head of the Department of English, University of Mumbai, India. Dr. Vivina has two PhD degrees to her credit, one in literature and the other in education. She has published 11 books and 58 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and critical anthologies. She has won numerous national and international awards. In 2013, her book on education, Sourceful Intelligence, was selected as among the 18 best books published in the USA. And her most recent book, What Children Really Want, has received critical acclaim from educators, psychologists, parents, writers from all over the world. In 2015, she was selected by the world leaders in education as among the 35 women from across the world changing educational paradigms. Dr. Vivina has her own storytelling organization called Wordfully Yours, which hosts storytelling programs and conducts training workshops. I now invite Dr. Vivina to say a few words, after which we will show you a short film on the subject. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Neena. A summit of this kind could not have happened without the cooperation of 108 people who've been working over months. A big thank you to all the speakers and all the change facilitators and everyone who has participated wholeheartedly in the summit. I owe special thanks to the advisory board of the summit, comprising Dr. Firoza Godrej, Mr. Noshir Kurodi, Mr. Noshir Dadarala, Mr. Sanjay Rastogi, Dr. Shehnaz Kama, Mr. Yazdi Tantra, Ms. Devika Chatterjee, Ms. Raki Chabria, and Ms. Fiona Reynolds. I owe ever so much to my summit coordinator that words seem inadequate. Ms. Donna Reen has been working with me shoulder to shoulder for over 18 months on this summit. A very special thank you to you, Donna. Mr. Yazdi Tantra is also on the core committee. Ms. Deepa Soman, Mr. Milind Soman, Mr. Glenn Concesio, and Mr. Bhaven Shah. Our partners for the summit are Tata Trent, Tantra Tech, K-Merck, Lumiere Business Solutions, Education World, Parents World, Penultimate, Teachers Help Teachers, First Moms Club, and Wolves. The short video film you saw at the beginning of the program was created by Wolves. I owe special thanks to luminaries who have supported the summit. None other than the Dalai Lama has sent us this letter. This letter arrived a day before the summit began, and I will only read a short excerpt from it. His Holiness says, I am pleased to know about the Global Tipping Point Summit and its focus on improving the present educational system so that our younger generation can become responsible citizens of our planet. Special thanks also to Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, recipient of 5 Presidential Action Awards, to Mr. Kersi Chowda. Dr. Kersi Chowda is one of the leading psychiatrists in India. Mr. Shamak Dava, internationally renowned choreographer, dancer, singer, performer, and entertainment director. Shri M, spiritual guide, social reformer, educationist, and Padma Bhushan awardee. Cyrus Brocha, TV writer, theatre personality, comedian, podcaster, and author, and Mr. Baman Irani, theatre and film director, voice artist, and photographer. Several institutes have partnered with us, and we thank all the institutes. There have been as many as 18 institutes. Special thanks go out to Patuck Institute, which has worked with us from the beginning of this program, of the summit, and has agreed to be one of the experimental schools as well, and to the Diamond Jubilee School. 8 Diamond Jubilee schools of the Aga Khan Trust have participated in the summit. Thanks also go out to Udyachal High School, Vikroli, JB Pettit High School for Girls, St. Michael's Academy, Adyar, Chennai, Zoram School in Mizoram, Sherchip Trust, Mizoram, JBCN International School, Borivali, Mumbai, Activity School, Mumbai, Vidyashram International School, Jodhpur, Vidya High, Airoli, Mumbai, the Tata Trust, the Thomas Education, Vidya High, Bangalore, then Hansraj College of Education, Kar, which is a teacher training college, St. Andrew's College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Bandra, Mumbai, and TSB International School, Mumbai. Many, many thanks to all. As I said, a special thank you to the Patuck Group of Education, Mumbai, for being a partner institution and experimental school for action groups, and 8 schools of the Aga Khan Education Service, India, for partnering with us. Thank you very much, Nina. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. It is with great pleasure.
The online Global Tipping Point Summit from November this year to January 2021 is designed to explore paradigm shifts in education and parenting in an innovative way. Our aim is to create healthy learning and nurturing ecosystems by combining knowledge with self-awareness and wisdom to transform our lack-based consciousness into one rooted in abundance.
Who will be attending the summit?
Policymakers and education board authorities, principals, teachers, college and university professors, parents, caregivers, librarians, counselors, students, and anyone who's interested in education and parenting. What do we do differently? We have world-class visionaries and thought leaders as speakers who will expound their ideas and point the way in the right direction. They will be supported by far in the belly change facilitators who will suggest effective and practical ways of implementing the ideas of the speakers. At the online summit, participants will be invited to form action groups in the areas of their choice and to create the change they wish to see in the world. By 2025, we hope to reach out to as many people as possible through face-to-face and online talks and workshops. Come, be a part of the change. For more details on the summit, please visit our website www.gtps4change.org. See you there.
Thank you, ma'am. It is with great pleasure that we welcome and introduce our speaker of the day, Dr. Rakesh Godhwani. He is the founder of SOME, that is, the School of Meaningful Experiences, that offers programs for teenagers that help them become more confident, communicative, curious, creative, collaborative, and competent. He is also an adjunct faculty of communication at IIM Bangalore and IIM Udaipur. Coaches promising startups and senior managers in the industry, gives seminars and talks in corporate events and colleges, reads a story to his kids every night before they sleep, bicycles to work whenever he can, rides, earns a fraction of what he used to, but lives a million times better. His fourth book, titled Public Speaking Kaleidoscope, was released by Business Expert Press USA in May 2017. His earlier book, What to Say and When to Shut Up, was published by Penguin Random House in November 2014 and translated in Marathi in 2017. Rakesh recently launched his online course on edX and IMBX called Effective Business Communication, designed for learners around the world. Prior to this, Rakesh has worked in Wipro, Intel, and Qualcomm in various profiles ranging from product marketing, sales, and business development before he took the plunge to pursue his passion in teaching and writing. He's an alumnus of NIT Karnataka, BE Computers, Class 97, IIM Bangalore, PGSCM, Class 2004, and Cardiff Metropolitan University, PhD 2018. Rakesh also volunteers as a counselor at Vishwa Society for Mental Health. Follow him at Godhwani, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Welcome, Dr. Godhwani, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Neena ji. It is such a joy to be here with all of you. My sincere gratitude and thanks to Kumi, Donna, the entire team at GTPS, and my other colleagues who join me in this conversation that I'd love to have with you. And my colleagues are Danya Dalvi, Sonal Sethia, Pooja Sudhir, and Adil Patuck. I think we are witnessing an amazing for all of us to start looking at education all over again. COVID-19 has completely changed the way we live, completely changed the way we think, and I think it will keep impacting us. And this is the best time to relook and look at an education system and see what can we do to make it better. And in this regard, I'd like to spend a few minutes with all of you and share some of the ideas and thought processes that we collectively will present to you. And we need your support to see how we can make a difference to education. I think education in India is a fascinating concept. And I'll share my screen with your permission and show you some very interesting concepts that we have all prepared for you. We have kept the title of our conversation very simple. And one of the things Kumi and I were very clear when we started discussing was that I think we keep talking about education, but we really don't do anything about it. So we thought that we're going to keep our conversation to an actionable strategy that we would like to work on. And we would like to propose that to a team that will work with us and shape it for some learners. Here is my team in front of you. There are my partners in crime, Danya, Puja, Sonal, and Adil, and they will also share their views very soon. And I think we all had a great time getting our minds together on few areas that are very critical for us to explore together. Let's first take a look at a very macro level view of education. There are about 300 learners in India today, and they are from all the way to a kindergarten to a university level. And 300 learners, and even if I add their families, I think we're looking at a 500 to 600 million people of our country directly and indirectly connected to education. That's like half our country and maybe more. But I think if I look at all the stakeholders who are connected directly or indirectly to education, I think we are convinced that this system is really not working for the 21st century. 21st century, especially after how COVID-19 has impacted us, I think if we take a macro view of 21st century, I will submit to you 5 interesting data points that you should take back with you today. We will, as a globe, Mother Earth, will become more and more populated. By 2050, there could be about 10 billion people living on this planet. The age would probably reach about 100 years. It's a different story that our quality of life may be very bad. But I think with the advances in technology and healthcare, many of us listening to this conversation would probably touch the dawn of the 22nd century, and some of us will even cross it. Our children will probably get there. In that scenario where people are going to live longer, I think we must ask ourselves a question that why is it that education is still stalling and is not innovating at a pace at which other technologies are progressing? Our education systems are still designed for a very old, archaic century, and 21st century is very, very different. And this is where we need to also look at a question that in this world where all of us are going to live long, we also will work longer. Those days where people would retire at 55 or 60 are gone. I think many of us will keep working till the day I die, till the day we die. And I think we have to prepare our learners for not just 20 to 25 years of a career, but a career that spans upwards of 50 to 60 years. I bet my paycheck that many of us will work for more than 65 to 70 years from the day of graduation. In this scenario, another very interesting concept is that human beings will also start living at Moon and Mars. That day is about to happen very soon. And finally, I think each of our children, including many of us listening to this conversation, will not end up doing only one thing. We'll do many things in one lifetime. We could start our careers with engineering, become doctors, become lawyers, become poets, become singers, become guitarists, become cricketers. You name it, it's possible. So the career shifts will happen more than 5 times in this 70-year trajectory. If this is the macro view, and there are so many learners, we need to look at education very, very differently. And I and my group of colleagues who discussed this problem finally said that we are going to focus most of our time on three critical problem areas that we want to talk to you about. The first problem that we want to submit to all of you is that I think about 100, 200 years ago, the way a school was designed was very different. And this is a very traditional form of design that a very wise group of people would come together and create a school. And the pupils who would come to that school would have no other way of learning except from the wisdom of these wise people. So there was a hierarchical thought process. The wise people would think that I know everything and you pupils don't know everything. So there is a looking down syndrome on these learners. But if you look at the 21st century learner and with the way they're accessing information through a variety of channels and not just the wise people, you will be surprised to know that these pupils probably know more than the wise people. Now, the wise people may know little things about the subjects that they are experts at, but these pupils are aware of what's happening in the world because of the cell phone, social media, and the revolution of information. So I think we should start asking the question that did we ever, what do you want to learn? And I'll give you my experience that happened very recently. NEP 2020 was announced, and I was very happy to see that after a very long time, our country has taken a giant leap to make this education system better. And it's a very refreshing new policy. So I was part of this group of people who were discussing the education policy, and I was very closely listening and learning. And then they opened up questions, and I asked only one question. I asked the people who had supported this whole process of designing the policy that did you ask what the learners want? And there was a deafening silence. In fact, some of the people looked at me that I probably didn't come from Earth as if I came from Mars. And I did not get a very convincing answer. I have a feeling that none of us even bother to talk to the most important stakeholder of education, which is the learner. The places of design or the schools are designed not for the learner, The curriculum is designed not for the learner. Everything is designed for everyone else except the learner. And this is a concept I took from a movie called Kung Fu Panda, where there is a person called Panda. His name is Pooh, and he loves Kung Fu. And there are many children out there who want to do various things in life, but when they come to an education institution, they are made to do things that they don't want to do. So the first problem I and my group wanted to talk about was that do we even bother to understand what our learners want to learn? And it's a very, very good question to start thinking. Because if you look at the world from their perspective, they may want to do many things, but the education system probably does not support that. The second thing that we wanted to talk about was this bizarre problem that what is being taught at schools and what is the reality outside the schools are very, very different. To give you some data points, many of the jobs that are available today did not exist about 15 years ago. And many of the jobs that will come in the next 10 years probably don't exist today. The pace at which the world is moving is extremely fast. And many of us in management institutes give the example of Xerox and typewriters. The pace of progress in those industries is about 50 years. Today, the pace of technological advancements is about 5 to 10 years. Many things start and within 5 years are obsolete. So, what is happening is a bizarre pace of revolution outside, but it is not translating to a bizarre pace of innovation inside the classrooms. And it's a very complex problem. To make a curriculum relevant, you need to design it, then somebody has to teach it, and then somebody has to take it further to the learner's level. This requires a lot of time. And by that time, the industry has moved on or the world has moved on. And a very significant part of learning is that we are preparing all our learners to come out of school to go to a college and to a university or a job. And the whole world out there changes. I have just one or two problems with the ways schools are working. Here is scenario number one. All schools, and this is hierarchical and historical, all schools have a way of making students come in bunches, and most of the time the bunching is done on their age. So all 12 years in one class, all 13 years, and it goes on. And this goes on till the time they go to a college and they come out in the corporate world. And the first thing you experience when you go to a corporate world is you enter a meeting room where there are people all over the world and from all over the age groups. And it's very difficult for this person to absorb and understand what's going on because their entire training program is based on certain things done in a classroom where age and peer groups were a very significant part. So this person's way of behaving in the outside world is very, very different. And all of this is never discussed in a classroom or prepared for them in the classroom. There are many more other things that happen. The curriculum inside the classroom is designed to sometimes memorize a particular concept and write an exam so that you get some marks. But then when you go to the practical world out there, it doesn't happen like that. In the practical world out there, you collaborate, talk to each other, understand each other, make sure that the differences of opinions are also mitigated. But all of these things are never discussed inside a classroom. Sometimes the confidence of a particular child is very, very low because that child is able to memorize it very nicely or answers very nicely, but is not able to communicate with the people outside. And I work a lot with business school students and working professionals at the age of 21 and above. They all have amazing marks, but when it comes to communication with confidence and many more other skills that are needed, it is very hard for them to come at par with the global standards. The realization of this in my own life came when I applied for a job, and I luckily got a job. And I was told in my interview that we are giving you a job not because you have good marks, but because you are able to communicate very well. So there is a very big difference in the way I spent my time inside a classroom to the way I spent my time outside the classroom in a real world. And we need to start bringing these things inside the classroom. And finally, the third problem that I would like to talk about is this constraint of measuring the output. I think this is where all the problems become even more difficult. And there's this lovely picture I got from the internet where there is a gentleman sitting at a table and he's looking at a series of different animals and he's saying that everybody has to now climb the tree so that we can now decide who's the best. And if you look at our measuring systems, it is a very, very narrow measuring system for an output. There are all kinds of people in the world, and there are many ways we should start treating them. But when you look at education, I don't think, except marks, there is anything out there today which we are using to measure them. And it is such a big problem because there is a good amount of research done in academia and literature that there are multiple intelligences in human beings. But then when we are measuring those intelligences, we are making our choices very, very narrow. And we need to now start thinking about new ways of measuring our students. Here are two, three questions for all of us to start thinking on. When a student comes to us and says that I have got this many marks, of course, that student is a very qualified student and very capable. Nobody is denying that. But let's say this student is now doing a job with lots of people where his behavior is also very important. Do we know a measure of that person's behavior? Will this person be kind and respectful to somebody else in that room? Is there any yardstick that we have created? And these are very critical, important questions, but we do not have a system as of today to start measuring them. Most of these experiments are more or less academic experiments, but we need to find a way to bring them inside a classroom. So these three are the problems I and my group decided that we will work on. And now I'd like to submit three strategies and actionable points that we would like to spread with your help. And we feel that we should bring some difference in our education system. The first actionable strategy that we would like to provide is that I think we should provide choices beyond the curriculum to learners that allows them to explore multiple intelligences. Some people are good in musical instruments. Some people are good in spatial arrangement. Some people are good with their bodies and dance. Some people are good with animals and trees. Some people are very good with math and science. So we should be able to offer them multiple choices, not just in class 10th. I think class 10th is the first time where a student is supposed to make a choice. And many of these students go through a lot of anxiety based choice making system because the choices are again very narrow. We are offering them math or non math based discussions. So students get very worked up that, hey, I really want to do humanities, but I also like math and I also like science and I also like animals and musical instruments. Can we give them a broad set of choices in class 10th or maybe even earlier? And this is where all of us have an opportunity to bring the whole world of curriculum inside the classroom, but let the students choose. I believe that we are not taking the choice of students very carefully. If you give them a bundle of choices and let them choose what they want to learn, I think they'll enjoy education a lot better. There's this lovely movie called School of Rock that you should all watch. And it's a hilarious movie, but it talks about this very eccentric person who comes in as a rock musician teacher and transforms a set of students and makes them enjoy music. And he's not even a qualified teacher. And I think that's what the students start to look. They look at a person to inspire them to learn on a topic that they want to learn. Can we provide them in our classrooms? That is the first actionable strategy. The second one, which is very close to all of us in our group, is again a concept that while there is a system in the school where there is a head boy and the head girl, I think the head boy and head girl and maybe few other students, the design of the school is just to give a top down information through the head boy, head girl to the bottom. I think that is not called collaboration. I think we should bring students inside the governing council. And there is a head table of the school, there is a school governing structure. I think it would be worthwhile to bring these amazing people, amazing group of learners, and ask them that, hey, what do you think we should do? How do we design our schools? What do you want to learn? How do we create systems for your measuring grades and so on? What are the things that you don't like? What are the things you like? And create a dialogue where their voice becomes very important into the whole system. In fact, if you look at all these sectors, the the way the sectors operate is tuned to what the customer wants. Now, the word customer can be very dangerous in our context, but I think if you look at all of us as educators, at the end of the day, we are really working towards our learner. And I'm a teacher and educator myself. But a very significant thing that I have learned in the last decade or so in education is that if you ask them what they want and change your way of delivering, your adaptability and your success rate is much better, because now you know what is the expectation this person has. And this is something I encourage all of you to take very seriously, that create a governing council, let the students decide and come on board. In fact, you should have elections, because this is what's going to increase their leadership quotient. And the second thing is, you should also tell them to have their own code of conduct. Teachers and educators should not become disciplinarians beyond a point. They should govern themselves. And if we give them this platform of democracy in the school, they will also become better citizens. So please start bringing them into your governing councils and take their words very seriously. And the last one is, I think we all should find new ways to measure outcomes of learners. This madness of marks is really bad for all of us. There is huge depression, stress, anxiety in students. I think we are all collectively responsible for it. Now, if we can put a man or a woman on Moon and Mars, I don't think this problem is that difficult. I think it just requires a little bit of collaboration, little bit of thought process, little bit of risk taking, so that we can find ways to tell children and learners that, hey, you may not be good at math, but you're very good in poetry. You're very good with other human beings and animals. You're a very good dancer. You're an amazing pianist. You're a person who can talk with anyone and make anybody comfortable. You're a person who can soothe and comfort another human being. And if we can start giving them A grades in all of these things and give a bouquet of opportunities, I have a feeling that we will create an education system which will be a landmark system for the whole world, and it will increase the productivity of our country and put us on the head table of the world. So, this is my entire conversation that I'd like to share with you, that we are in one of the most exciting times of education. We are looking at a world which is changing very fast. We are looking at a possibility of making education more worthwhile. Online technology and COVID-19 is a blessing in disguise. What we now need is support from all of you so that we could take these simple experiments, bring new diversity in curriculum, bring students into the decision making system, and give them new tools so that they can be measured on a different way. And I think it will be an amazing experiment that I'd love to work with you. So, with that, I will conclude my talk and hand it back to Kumi. Thank you very much for having me here. And my colleagues will also share more views on this. On the first actionable strategy, which is how do we create more offering in curriculum, my colleagues Puja and Danya will share some views. On the second actionable strategy, which is how do we involve students into governing councils, Adil will share his views on how he has done it in his school. And lastly, on the concept that how do we create new measuring system, my colleague Sonal will give some ideas to you. So thank you very much, Kumi and team. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. That was a crystal clear presentation. 3 problems, 3 strategies. Thank you for making life so simple. Those of you who've been attending the other talks would realize that there seems to be a common thread running through the talks presented by the various speakers. One of the things which Rakesh talked about today is that we need to give agency to our learners. And this is something which has been reiterated by almost every speaker at this summit. The second thing, which is also common, is that we all agree that our strategies of assessment must change. So thank you very much, Rakesh. That was, as I said, a very clear, very lucid presentation. And your change facilitators and you have been working very long on this. I'm sure you will achieve actionable changes. Thank you. And now I will briefly acquaint you with the thought behind this summit. This summit has been planned as being slightly different from the usual summits and conferences that we attend. At the usual conferences, we have a speaker who speaks and the audience which asks questions. Here we have the speaker speaking for 20 to 25 minutes. But there are 4 change facilitators who've been working with the speaker over months. And they have a mini project which they will teach the online participants. Those of you who are excited and interested could sign Google Forms, which are there on our website, www.gtpsforchange.com, and request to be members of the action group. The change facilitators will provide training over 3 months. Each of the change facilitator has created a module of 3 hours. So you get 12 hours of training, after which you go out into the world and implement those changes. We will review the project time and again, and at the end of the year, we will have an impact report. And I'm sure that some will be quantifiable and some of the skills may not be quantifiable as yet. So we will have a blend of qualitative and quantitative impact reports. So I look forward to having you go to the website, sign Google Forms, and become members of our action group. Thank you very much, and over to Nina.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first change facilitator is Ms. Pooja Sudhir. Having facilitated IGCSE and IBTP English for 13 years, Pooja Sudhir currently works at DSP International School as the IBTP Extended Essay and Theory of Knowledge, that's TOK coordinator, inculcating critical thinking skills and designing differentiated classrooms are her areas of interest. Her blog, sochbypooja.com, comprises poetry, film, and theatre reviews and teaching resources for the theory of knowledge. Welcome, Ms. Sudhir, and over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nina, very much for that. The focus of my presentation and module is going to be differentiation and learner choice. If you were to read anything written on differentiation, all resources and theories will talk about differentiation in 4 different categories. It will be the category of content, of process, of assessment products, and the learning environment. However, I'm going to focus only on the process because I'm interested in the exchange and experience within the classroom. And for both, we all know that both the teacher and the learner come most alive within that space of classroom when we're actually teaching and learning. And because the focus of my group is to put the learner at the center of the learning process, I will be examining the differentiated teaching and learning process from of learner choice. Since 3 also seems to be the magical number, courtesy my team leader Rakesh, I'm going to look at the learning process through 3 different parameters of choice. Right, so these are the 4 categories that I was talking about earlier, and the training module that I have designed will focus only on the category of process. The next slide, thank you. The next slide is about looking at 3 different parameters of choice that we are going to provide the learners, we can possibly provide the learners. One is learner's choice through goal, the second through role, and third through emotion. The next 3 slides are going to introduce each of these choices, and instead of theoretical constructs, it is going to introduce some very simple examples and ideas that we can actually take into the classroom with us literally tomorrow even. The reason why these are simple ideas and direct strategies is because differentiation, in my opinion, is not a theoretical construct. It is not a philosophy, but rather a simple way of looking at your classroom, a different attitude, a very simple attitude of looking and privileging your learner. And I think all of us teachers, intuitively, almost as an organic part of teaching and learning, do differentiation at different points in time if we are sensitive and if we are responding to the learner's choice. The first choice, the first parameter of choice is going to be through goal setting. And I would like to qualify based also on some of the responses that I'm reading on the chat. Is that this is possible even in those classrooms where the teachers are bound by certain assessment rubric and grading rubrics and a fixed curriculum, which may not be within your right to change immediately. Because even when you look at a very fixed assessment criteria and grading rubric, it has different elements, it has different skills, it has different levels. This is a possibility of regularly inviting the student into a conversation to negotiate with you which part or which element of the assessment criteria would he, she, or they consciously want to work towards in your particular subject. And this begins a beautiful conversation with the student to talk about what is the common goal over here that you and the learner are involved in. This is also a way in which, even if you cannot change that assessment criteria or focus, you can at least invite the learner into becoming a more conscious participant and practitioner of the teaching and learning process. The second choice is, in my mind, the most exciting, because differentiation is all about responding to the differences in different learners. And when you are differentiating through the choice of role, you are acknowledging not only the different multiple intelligences or intellectual capabilities of the learner. So you're not only differentiating on how differently the learner learns, but how different the learner is as an individual. You're also creating an opportunity for yourself to know this learner beyond the context of a student or the classroom, but who he or she or they are in real life. It's a wonderful opportunity to also build community and build trust, and to see the same student and learner in a different light from time to time, and becoming a more dynamic and truly a democratic member of the entire process. The third and the last choice is, in my mind, very, very crucial. It might be most challenging, but we cannot talk about creating an inclusive classroom without being inclusive about the emotions of a learner. And the first step, in my mind, towards this is to not differentiate between positive and negative emotions. Uh, it is to give the sense of trust and respect to each emotion that the learner may experience. And I may want to quickly add a disqualifier over here that it is not an opportunity for any one of us as professional teachers to turn into counselors or turn our classroom into counseling sessions. It is merely to, or go and fix any emotional problem, but it is merely to get the student to be a little more mindful of his or her or their emotions and check in from time to time at the end of a lesson how this learning process made any difference, if at all, to their emotional state. It is something that has been spoken of in the West as well as the East and practiced in alternative schools like the Krishnamurti schools for decades. But it is time for us to consciously rope this in into our own classrooms and make it an organic part of the mainstream teaching and learning. With this, I would like to thank my team, but specifically my team leader, Mr. Rakesh, for asking this very, very radical question to all of us who had beautiful ideas and solutions to problems of education. He paused and posed this question, where in all of this is the learner's choice? And my module is going to be a humble attempt to answer this. And I really hope that a lot of you join me in this process and answer this question. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Ms. Sudhir. Our next change facilitator is Ms. Danya Dalvi. She completed her BA in psychology from Sophia College, Mumbai. She then went on to formalize her love for teaching by completing her bachelor's in education from the University of Mumbai. A poet at 15 and a published author at 18, Danya likes to think of the field of education as her vocation and not just a profession. She is currently working with a very renowned brand in education, that is the Podar Education Network, and is working to bring about change for her students at Podar International School, Mira Road, as well as students around the country. Welcome, Ms. Dalvi, and over to you.
Hello everyone, am I audible? I think so. So my topic right now, why the content we teach in classroom and why it needs to change and how. Like our team leader Rakesh, he said that we talk less about the problem because I think everyone, each one of us present here know what the problem is. The only thing we need to do is to find the solution to the problem. So the content that we transact in a classroom is very important. And what is the problem and why do we need to change it and how? That is what I am going to be focusing on, and that will be my area of training. Rakesh, next. The curious case of 150 watermelons. Now I will explain this problem with an anecdote. I remember in my school, in the math book, there was a problem talking about a man, say Ram. We'll call this man Ram. Ram bought 150 watermelons at the supermarket. And as a kid, I was so confused. I would really sit back and think, what was up with this man Ram that one morning he got up and thought to himself, today I shall buy 150 watermelons. This is where what is essentially wrong with our with the content that we teach. Next. Next, Rakesh. Yeah. So what is taught in school and the requirement of the world, there is a huge gap between the two. What we teach in school and what the world requires is a lot different. Even though they overlap, there is a few gaps which remain, and students often slip through these gaps. Next. So here you can see in the list that what is taught in school is clearly not, we cannot say that it is of no use at all. What is taught in school is required to in the real world as well, but the list of the real world requirements exceeds what is taught in school. You can see in the Venn diagram, the taught in school part is completely empty because what they're teaching us is completely basic, and the real world requirement is a lot more than that. Here I have just mentioned a few of what me and my team together have thought that what the real world requirements are and what are not being taught in school right now, like financial literacy, handling your own finances. I think every adult will agree that once we are out there, we need to know how we handle our taxes, how we invest our money, etc. Public speaking. We are here right now at any point of our adult life. I think we have been faced with a situation where we have to speak in public speaking, creative writing, and like Rakesh is a strong proponent of this, confidence and collaboration. These things are not taught in the curriculum. They do not find a proper place. Numeracy, literacy, basic problem solving, and critical thinking. As a byproduct of education, our students do learn basic problem solving and critical thinking. We cannot deny that. Numeracy and literacy is definitely achieved by school. So these are the things that school does, and the content that we teach does in a nutshell. Next. Now, what must be taken into consideration while planning a relevant curriculum? When we say relevant, it means the curriculum which will actually be of use to the students. So, the first point, again, 3 is the magical number with our group, demystification of the education and of the purpose of education. When we teach something to the students, we need to question ourselves, does this thing have the potential to benefit the student in any way in their personal or professional lives? The next, the content taught must be placed in a framework of utility. That means what I'm teaching today, will it help my student to solve real world problems that they will face tomorrow out or even in school? That they need to be placed in a framework of realism. We need to look at the reality of what the content we teach actually does to the student, helps the student. Last and the most important point that is brought forth by our team leader Rakesh, and which we all agree to, learner's autonomy. Does the learner really want to learn what is being taught in class? Is it their forte? Do you want to learn it? As adults, we know we don't like being forced to do anything at all. Just imagine a 8 or a 9-year old. You are just telling them you have to do this. Do they enjoy? Do they have a choice? And learning happens only when you enjoy it. So do the learners have a choice? Next, these are the 3 points of planning the curriculum. Now, this is the curious case of watermelons revamped. The same example, when placed in a framework of utility, planned well to help students solve real world problems, the same problem can be used to explain that this man, Ram, bought 150 watermelons for a reason, because he owns a juice center and it's summer, so he has a lot of customers. So this same example can be used to teach them budgeting, marketing, profit and loss, and many other things. So this was my presentation, and I'll be training you on the part of content. I hope you join me and my wonderful team. Over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Ms. Dalvi. We now welcome Mr. Adil Patuck. He's a chartered accountant by vocation and yoga practitioner by choice. He's the chairman of the organizing board of the Patuck Polytechnic Trust, which runs educational institutes in Santa Cruz East for the economically weaker segments of society. The institutes are affiliated to the SSC and HSC boards at the school level and to the University of Mumbai at the college level. He strongly believes in empowering people and has succeeded in creating a dynamic connection culture in the institutions he heads. He has the unique distinction of creating a genuinely happy environment in which all can thrive and support each other. Inspired by his commitment and passion for education, the teachers in his institutes joyfully work in alignment with his vision and mission. For several years now, he has created highly innovative programs for teachers, students, and parents, and has been a catalyst for transforming the lives of all he touches. Welcome, Mr. Patuck, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Nina, for introducing me. At the beginning, I must admit I am not an academician, but I have inherited this legacy from the family, and I'm carrying it forward as best I can and trying to see that we have a very enjoyable future for everybody. My presentation begins with a dream by my grand uncle, Mr. Rustamji Patak, who in the 1920s crystallized the concept of a dream into a reality. And that's why I've titled it Dreams. He created a trust with an endowment of rupees 3 lakhs way back in 1932. His philosophy was not giving dose by teaching people to be self-reliant. He believed and practiced in the saying, give a man a fish today and he will eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This philosophy has continued right through. He thus visualized technical and skill education as an alternative to academic education at a time when students were moving away from the traditional skills. This is in tune with the Swiss education reformer, Mr. Pestasoli, who propounded that education should develop the head, heart, and hands. We firmly believe in this, and we keep developing all three skills. Today, we have over 4,000 students, of which around 3,000 follow the academic stream of our education, but another 1,000 follow the vocational and technical skills. And they appear for the HSC and the SSC examinations with vocations and technical subjects. Skill development is becoming more relevant in the 21st century, and it is time all educational institutions include skills as part of the extracurricular activities. We have launched the Patak Life Skills Foundation a few years ago as an additional vertical. And among the serious verticals we are looking at are personality development, technology skills, business skills, language skills, and creative skills. Because we believe that every person has different skills and they need to be encouraged, recognized, and developed. We passionately believe in empowering all our stakeholders and work hard to create an environment which is stimulating and encourages them to think differently for the betterment of society at large. We believe in being different in a very positive atmosphere and encourage solutions from all. In future, we could consider empowering the students by including them in the decision-making bodies of the school college. I would like to illustrate this with an example at our campus. Can I see the next slide, please? The next slide, please. About a year back, in early December, 2 young students from the 9th standard, together with a class teacher, came and visited me. Go back one slide, please. They came with a set of drawings and said they want to display these in our classroom. We didn't take it lightly. We took it quite seriously. And in the course of discussion, we said, why not make it into something which is grand? And I showed the children our staircases, which are in a rather poor condition, a dirty condition, people spitting on them, misusing them. And I said, why don't you take this as your canvas? The kids were delighted. They said, sir, can we start right away? And I said, yes, you can. Mind you, this is about mid-December. The Christmas vacations came. They said, we'll work right through the Christmas vacations. By that time, they had created a team of young artists who happily spent the Christmas vacation painting the staircase walls. What you see on this canvas are different paintings done by them. And it has been such a great motivation to them and to others also, that people are today coming forward with their own dreams and aspirations and asking for an opportunity to change. So we can empower our students. We can do everything to encourage them to follow their passions. And this is what we are all about. I believe all of us can emulate what we are doing. Those are very simple thoughts. There's nothing which requires major permissions or major changes in curriculum. This is all done together with a part of their regular curriculum. So I would feel that there are many things that we as educators can do, and it's very much within our scope to do them also, without any major capital cost, without any major permissions, without any change in the way we think, or without any way that we cannot perform if we have the commitment and the will to do what we want to do. I would now like to end my presentation with an ancient Zoroastrian philosophy. May I see the next screen, please? The philosophy says, Humata Hukta Avrashta. In English, it says, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It's very simple, and I think today it can be applied to every one of us. Let us think good, because that will lead to talking good. And if we think and talk good, it's going to lead to good actions, to good deeds. I will now end my presentation and welcome all of you who feel that you have the zest and the will to do something different to sign up. And I will welcome meeting all of you. I want to thank our leader, Rakesh Godhwani, my fellow colleagues on this team for the wonderful cooperation we've had. And thank you so much. Thank you, Nina. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Patuck. We now welcome Dr. Sonal Sethia. Dr. Sonal aspires for the children of today to achieve full potential and aims to provide education to that end. An IIT Bombay postgraduate with a PhD from the University of Glasgow, Sonal has been a Teach for India Fellow. Having worked in the heart of conflict zones in Kashmir and Manipur, currently she is the Chief Operating Officer of Sunbird Trust in Northeast India. Welcome, Dr. Sethia, and over to you.
Thank you, Nina. I hope I'm audible. Good evening, everybody. This is going to be the last presentation for today. I promise that. So far we've heard from my team members, Adil, Puja, and Danya, who have spoken about how we can make curriculum more learner-focused. And I will be talking about strategies on how we can make the assessment process more learner-focused. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah, thanks. So before we get there, I'd like to take you on a historical journey to understand how did educational testing actually come into being. So in the 5th century AD, it was the Chinese who conducted the first exam to select a candidate for bureaucracy based on merit and not on lineage. Many centuries later, in about 1800s, the British followed into the Chinese footsteps and started conducting civil service examination. Now, this was also the time of the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Reason. And next, please. Under the Factory Act, education and testing was made compulsory for children coming to work in the factories. Rakesh, next, please. The first intelligence test was devised in 1906 for children by Binet, and the purpose of this test was actually to eliminate the slowest learning children from the classroom. Also, with the advent of the world wars, this kind of intelligence testing was used as a standardized tool for mass testing to select the best candidates to join the army. Just about in World War I alone, over 2 million people were tested under this model. So the takeaway from this long story is that this kind of testing model is based on testing a single entity of human mind, which is the abstract intelligence, and it is measured in terms of the IQ or the intelligence quotient. The second takeaway is that sadly, this model forms the basis of educational testing as we know it today in our education system. Next, please. So what is wrong about this system, or what is insufficient in this kind of IQ measuring assessment system. So I've taken a case study to illustrate my point. This is a longitudinal study which was done on 1,000 children in New Zealand, and for 30 years, from the age of 3 to the age of 32 years. And it was found that it was their childhood social control, which is, in other words, their socio emotional intelligence as we know it today, and not their IQ, which predicted the wealth, health, and ethical behavior of these children in their adult life. This study, and there are many more studies that you can find, these studies tell us that this kind of linear model of testing, where we are looking at a single ability of IQ to measure a learner's success, is actually not working for many children. Next, please. But the good news is that you and I can do something about it. And in my training module, I will be talking about 2 strategies on how we can make assessments to be more learner centric, and how can this process actually make the learner more future ready. The first strategy is, in addition to measuring the IQ, what are the other things that we could measure? Concrete intelligence. Something that Adil talked about in his presentation, that things that learners can do with their hands, we could measure that. Socio-emotional intelligence and divergent thinking, which were both covered by Puja and Danya in their talks, which talks about measuring the learner on these different abilities as well. The second strategy is, how do we make the process of assessment more learner centric and more learner focused? We can introduce concepts like self-assessment, peer assessment, and performance tasks, which keep the learner at the center of the assessment process. Next, please. So, in summary, our group consisting of Rakesh, Adil, Puja, Danya, and myself, we are working on actionable strategies to make education more need-based and more learner-focused, and we are using 3 strategies to do this. The first is giving agency to the learner. The second is giving choice to the learner in curriculum. And the third is making the assessment process more inclusive of the learner. If you're ready to turn these cogwheels with us, I urge you to join our group. I've had a great time working with an amazing team, and I hope you will too. With that, thank you so much for your patient listening.
Those were wonderful presentations. Thank you very much. So, Sonal, all 4 change facilitators spoke with so much of passion and enthusiasm, and are so happy to train people who want to come on board. We have a few questions here. One of the questions which has come in is that, since our Indian education system is determined by the boards, how can we get the various boards to change the curriculum?
I'll probably just take a shot at that. I think I have worked with many schools and colleges. The boards really don't stop you from doing anything. And there are some outer walls that they create. But after a point, I think they really let you do what you want to do. And I think as school owners and teachers, we also should probably expand our thinking and think a little bit out of the box, that there is a parental pressure and a societal pressure which comes from finishing the curriculum and announcing the results. And every school at the end of the 10th and 12th, I mean, you would know this, they would have huge posters in the front facade of their school that here are all our toppers. And this system, I think the board does not talk about it. And we misinterpret the policy maker and auditor and say that we are constrained by them. They don't constrain us. I think these are self-created problems that the school administration wants to be in the top 10 of their neighborhood. and have the bragging rights that all the best students come to me, and we will now take these 25 students and put them in IAS and IIT and NEET and all. And this system is not governed by the board. So we actually sometimes blame the board for really no reason. And many of the ministries and the officers out there, they're very supportive of innovation. In fact, they say that we will support you. We will do our best, because they are just governing the policy. The implementation is very much in our hands. In fact, NEP 2020 is really looking at a collaboration where the schools, teachers, parents all have to work together with the board to make it a lot better.
I would like to add something to what Rakesh said. This is a question that I had to also battle with when I joined current school at DSP International, because the instruction given to me was that focus on the learner. The learner has to enjoy. Because I too was set in my mindset. I was like, yeah, but I have to get them to pass the curriculum. I have to get them at the highest level of achievement in the assessment, right? And it took me a time. It took me a lot of time and thought to actually see where my immediate bosses were coming from. They said that the outcome will be the same, whether you focus on the assessment or you focus on the learner. But you will have greater success if you focus on the learner and if you get the learner to enjoy the process, because once they are in the process and they are an integral part of it and they are conscious participants, automatically you will achieve the outcome that you want to achieve. So I think the focus, the moment you kind of focus on the process, the outcome also becomes better and sweeter in my practical experience.
Absolutely.
Rakesh, there's a question for you. In your strategy number 2, you spoke of multiple choices. How do we handle multiple choices in large classrooms, and how do we complete the syllabus?
Rakesh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we have to look at this system and take one step at a time. And if you're going to mix 4 different problems, then it'll just be a deadlock. I think the problem in our education system is that it's just become a deadlock. The moment you tweak something, everything falls out of place. I have a feeling that the first thing we have to create is let the students make those decisions and then complete what they have to complete. So there is a river flowing. There are teachers and students who want to flow with the river. And then there are these different students and different teachers who are saying that, hey, we will now give 1 hour a day and give you some more choices. So I think one of the requests I have for everyone is we are not trying to shock the system, because when you try and shock the system, self-preservation comes in and the is just going to reject the entire thought process. So my suggestion to everyone, every educator, is take one small step at a time. See if you can create a 1 hour program in your school curriculum, which is completely voluntary, and the students and teachers come together, study it for about 2 to 3 months, collect data, and try and talk about it and socialize it in the other systems and build that system forward. I have been part of many conversations where everybody thinks that we have to just take a bulldozer and bulldoze all the education system. I don't think we are saying that. I think our education system is wonderful, from the kind of history we have as a country to the way we have built this country together. We should congratulate all of us that we are doing all right. A challenge is that this is not producing the kind of results we need. And that's where this new thinking is going to be a voluntary, step-by-step approach, and take one experiment and do that. So please take a 1 hour discussion, volunteer it, study it, build it. And that's what I and my team are doing. So we are working with a sample of students from Adil's school. We are going to offer this program through our action forces that you all will sign up with. And we are going to do this for about 3-4 months and then see how the results come and then scale it from there. And this will become hopefully a parallel system which people can come and go. So those who want to stick with the traditional system, please go there. We are not changing you. We're not saying you're bad people. And those of you who want to come to this new system, we are not saying you're good people. It's a choice. But I think what we believe in is we are really now bringing the students' decision system more into this entire discussion process and offering them a choice which is disconnected from parents and school board. That's all we're trying to achieve.
If I may add here.
Yes, Adil.
We should all learn to experiment. Listen to ideas, don't brush them off. Encourage people to work on those ideas, find solutions, and they are always available.
I have another question here. It says that, is the system prepared to accept a person who is a very powerful, passionate, and effective teacher, but does not have a B.Ed or a teaching qualification?
Can I take that, Kumi?
Of course.
Because I am a person who's passionate about education and does not have a B.Ed. And I think when I started out with this group on invitation of Donna and Kumi, it was my first concern. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But from my experience in the field of education for the past 5 years, I have understood that the most important thing as a teacher is to be able to empathize with your children and your learners. I think when that happens, and when you know and you understand your children, when you know what level they are, when you can get down to that level and teach them, and in the process learn yourself, I think the journey is beautiful for both. And giving like a practical example would be fellowships like Teach for India, for example, do not require you to have a B.Ed degree of sorts or any prior experience in education. They test only for passion, and they also definitely test for abilities to communicate, because that's one of the biggest abilities of a teacher when you are in a classroom. So yeah.
I think what this is about is more the mainstream system, because schools are not willing to really employ people without a degree. But I know of several international schools which value people who come to them as freshers. So yes, of course. Yeah. Somebody wanted to answer as well. Rakesh?
I wanted to talk about this because I do also not a B.Ed. And I know that in many schools you have to have a PhD to teach. So there are these constraints in the system. And I think I have decided that I will not become a part of a big institution to be called a professor. I think many of the teachers want to be called a designation. I get lots of people sending me email, how do I become a professor? And I ask them that, do you want to teach or do you want to be called a professor? And if you want to be called a professor or a teacher and your name has to be in that roster and the government job which pays 7th pay commission these days, then B.Ed is very simple. And I talk about this in all my sessions because a lot of students and people ask me this question that, sir, we are very capable, but we don't have this qualification. So how do we deal with it? And I say that imagine life like a roller coaster. And when I take my children to a park in Bangalore, it's called Wonderland. There is this ride which is the most dangerous, most exhilarating. And my little daughter and my son, when he was small, they want to go on that ride. And that ride has a basic criteria that you have to fit this certain height and weight. Otherwise, you wait. And my children would fight with me that we are very capable, we can do this, who are you to stop us? And that's my discussion with all my students and my colleagues that, hey, there is a system and the system has a criteria. And if you want to be a part of that system, you have to go through that process. Or else there is a system which is a parallel system, which is what Sonal also said, Teach for India, many NGOs and many other places, School of Meaningful Experiences. You don't need a B.Ed or a PhD to come and work with us. So you have to then sacrifice this position that, hey, at School of Meaningful Experiences, we're not going to call you a professor. And if you're okay with that, we will be happy to work with you. So make some choices. I feel sometimes many people want to associate with education because it makes them sound cool in their peer group. That we have worked for about 25, 30 years, now we are giving back to the society. I think these things have to be discussed again. That why do you have to give back to the society at the age of 45 and 50 and only through education? Why didn't you do it earlier? And I sometimes question friends who just want to now become teachers because they don't have anything else to do and want to teach, and they are told that you don't have a B.Ed degree. So they get very frustrated. So my request to all of you out there is education is as professional as any other sector. To get into that sector, there are certain checks and balances. And please don't hesitate in approving them yourself on those checks and balances, because it will make you a better person. And if you don't have those checks and balances, it doesn't mean that you cannot associate with education. There are many parallel NGOs, institutions who would love to have you, provided your calibration of education is right. That if you are looking for a designation, then please don't come inside.
If I may add to that, Kumi ma'am, is it okay?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
The reason why I would like to respond to this is because I'm a prime example of a product of passion. Because I'm a teacher today because my professor, Dr. Vavina, is passionate about not only teaching, but about creating many teachers or as many teachers as possible. So that was the only reason why I was pushed into the teaching field. And my first principal on my first teacher's day ever came to wish me and said that this is not a job, Puja, this is a calling. And what began as a one-year experiment became, calling for a lifetime. And I don't think I can imagine doing anything else. And while we kind of, privilege this passion and innovation, and you will, like Rakesh said, find organizations that will acknowledge your experience and your skill set outside of the paper documentation and qualification. Well, 4 institutions so far in my lifetime have done so. So I'm hopeful. But there was something else that also happened in my 13-year journey. I went back to, education. I did my master's in education after teaching like for 3-4 years. And I think that was a wonderful thing to happen because, like I said, like Sonal said, that, my learning was only from my students. I entered the classroom with much more humble place because I didn't come from, I have figured this out. No, I have not. So I kept listening to my learners because that was the only way I knew what to do. But when I went back to the theories, when I went back to, the educationists, whatever was written in books and, things that were tested on exams, they began to make sense to me in a much more profound way, in a much more practical way. I also got to choose what is relevant in a classroom and what is not. And therefore, I think, again, when we are making choices, it doesn't have to be an either or choice. And there are just so many wonderful programs available now, online as well, through even universities like the Bath University that, have campuses in collaboration with centers in India. Certain universities in England have their centers in places like Bangalore and elsewhere. So I think it's just about tapping the right opportunity, as long as, like Rakesh said, you are clear about your choice.
Excellent. Very true. Excellent.
Okay, I think Adil can take this one. How do schools sensitize parents to a need-based curriculum?
It is difficult because things are so ingrained into us that it's difficult to change opinions. I'll give you a small example. We realized that even in our school, where at least 60% of our students are first generation learners, In the primary and nursery levels also, they are packed off to coaching classes. And we decided that we try and wean them away because that's too young an age to be sitting in a classroom once again with somebody standing with a foot ruler and whacking them on the knees and wherever to do something which they're still not geared to. So we created a program called Kids Smart. Now, Kids Smart is a program where we said, okay, instead of you're going to a coaching class, come back to your school in the evening. We understand that the parents are working, the children need to be a little occupied somewhere else. So we'll take care of your children in an absolutely play way, in an atmosphere which they are already comfortable with, where there's space, gardens, everything available. And we'll educate them in an entire playway manner without any pressure or force or anything. We started off with 200 children. And guess what we ended at the end of the year? 9 students. Despite the children enjoying it, despite the parents seeing their performance monthly, where all the children would come together and perform in a play way whatever they had learned in the play school, despite the kids being delighted by what they were doing, the parents had enormous peer pressure that you are not forcing them to write. Coaching classes are giving them 2 hours of homework. You are giving 0 homework. This goes against our ingrained thoughts. So we had to re-engineer ourselves. Eventually what happened was the coaching class, which was taking 2 hours, decided to extend to 3 hours. And we had to play along with everything that the coaching class was doing. Anyway, we did not give up. And today I am happy to say that we have at least 40 students every year who come to us for Kids Smart. And it is my dream and vision that over a period of the next 8 to 10 years, if we can extend Kids Smart from, let's say, junior KG to upper KG to first standard and second standard and upwards, over a period of time, at least for our children, we can wean them away from this coaching class culture, which is such a cancer. Luckily, I think the new NEP policy also wants to do away with rote learning and forceful learning. And I see a lot of hope over there. I think we should all find ways and means of seeing how we can implement the policy, which reads very good on paper, but it's going to be extremely difficult to really implement. So if any of you would like to share your ideas with me, I'll be happy to meet you and see how we can take things forward. But believe me, if you have the will, you will succeed.
I think we have time for one last question. And
can I add to that?
Sorry, who's that?
Ma'am, Danya.
Yeah, sure, Danya, of course.
So what I think is we should see parents as a very important stakeholder in the whole system of education. First of all, when we begin to sensitize the parents, first of all, we need to forgive them if they do not understand. Because you cannot wean off 25 years of conditioning in 25 minutes. It takes time. We are in it for the long haul. We need to make parents a part of the education system. If we are planning a curriculum, get them involved. If there is a unit, a module that you want to teach on personal finance, if there's an investment banker who's a parent, get them on a weekend, ask them to conduct it. So when they are involved in the process, they enjoy it much more, rather than they don't understand which place you're coming from. Explain your rationale of doing things to the parent. Don't think that they will be against you. It is not parents versus the teachers, but parents and teachers working together in favor of the learner. We are not against each other. We are together in this.
Danya, you're 100% right. And I have been part of this experiment at Patuck School. So I know that involving the parents was done in the right spirit, and yet there were these difficulties. All right. One of the reasons why we are urging parents to attend the Education Summit and the educators to please participate in the Parenting Summit, which starts on the 8th, is because both of you, educators and parents, are working in the best interest of children. Most of the topics, if you look at the website, relate to us as teachers. So we would urge you as educators to please attend their summit, the Parenting Summit, and not say, oh, we are educators, our work is done, we have attended the Education Summit, right? So you couldn't be more correct, Danya. Thank you very much. But I have one quick question. We don't have time for more, but this question is rather interesting. It says that in the next 5 years, 85 million jobs are going to become obsolete, and 97 new jobs are going to be created. Since we don't know what the future is going to look like, does it even make sense asking the learners what they want? We don't know what we need to teach them. So how would you answer this question? Quickly, please. Anyone?
I think this is a great question, and it should connect us to the philosophy of education, that what is the purpose of education? None of us know what's going to happen in the future. But if you go back to the philosophy of education, Dewey, Krishnamurti, and all the stalwarts who have worked on this, I think the answer is surprisingly simple, that we need to help a child or a learner or a pupil learn how to learn.
Absolutely.
So there is a foundational value of education. So whether it is AI or humanities or philosophy, help the pupil learn how to learn.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to constrain them that, hey, only learn coding because coding is the future. I mean, in many decades, that also will get obsolete. So we need to sometimes look back at the history of the world to be able to realize that we have come this far because we human beings are extremely smart, capable people. What we are missing out is the rat race and the stress and the anxiety, which is causing us to decide very quickly that, oh, if I don't learn AI, I'm gone. We need to stop that and sometimes take cognizance that if a child or a pupil or a learner has some basic foundation things right, critical thinking, confidence, ability to collaborate, ability to have reasoning, ability to have linguistics and basics of arts and humanities, I think you're all right. And somebody, one of my very dear friends said this, that Rakesh, if you know how to play one music instrument, if you can play one sport, and if you have read a good book, I think you will learn how to learn. And this is what we need to bring into our curriculum all over again.
It's basically learning skills and human skills, or as they are called, life competencies.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we need to conclude this session. You all have been absolutely brilliant, very, very clear in your thinking, and thank you all very much. I pass the baton again to Nina. Nina will invite Valerie now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much for what can be best described as a lively Q&A. I now invite Ms. Valerie Mendoza, Senior Associate Research at CIEE, co-housed in IIM Ahmedabad, to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Godhwani, for a highly effective need-based presentation. Many thanks also to the team of change facilitators comprising Mr. Adil Patuck, Dr. Sonal Sethia, Ms. Danya Dalvi, and Ms. Pooja Sudhir. We are aware of your commitment to the summit and the regular meetings you've had despite your busy schedules. We are also thankful to you for putting together a very meaningful project entitled Need-Based Curriculum Design. The Google form to join the action group is available on our website, www.gtpsforchange.org. Please note, the last date for signing up
for the action groups will be on Sunday, 20th December 2020 for the Education Summit. Do not miss this opportunity and register on our website www.gtpsforchange.org. Our thanks go out to all the participants who have joined in from different parts of the world and from India. Do register for a parenting summit from the 8th to the 31st of January 2021. As you know, the sessions are scheduled only for weekends. We need you to work collaboratively with us to bring about the change we want to see in the world. See you tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 5:50 p.m. on the topic From Infancy to Adulthood, What Neuroscience Teaches Us About the Malleable Brain by Dr. Mazda Turel, practicing neurosurgeon, assistant professor of neurosurgery, writer and international speaker, and his wonderful team of change facilitators. Mr. Milan Soman will then speak at the valedictory session and provide guidance to the summit team of speakers and change facilitators from his vast experience as a leadership coach, transformational catalyst, and executive director, Lumiere Business Solutions Private Limited. Do follow us on our social media. We tweet at GTPS4C. We are also present on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Until next time, stay happy, stay safe.